Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a fantastic guest on the show today. I have Alicia Cramer. Alicia, excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here. I love you, Gresh. So thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, absolutely. I love you too. I love all the awesome things that you're doing. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit more about what Alicia does. And before we do that, I want to read a little bit more so you can hear about some of those awesome things. And Alicia is a renowned mindset expert, an author, coach, consultant, and a serial entrepreneur. Having worked with hundreds of private clients for well over a decade, from startups to owners of multi-million dollar companies, Alicia has an intimate understanding of the mindset pitfalls that affect entrepreneurs. Her clients include successful business professionals, executives, and entrepreneurs who are driven to take their personal and professional success to the next level. And I've been and had the honor of being a guest on Alicia's show. She does so many awesome things. So you have to check out her YouTube channel, her podcast, all the awesome things that she's doing. And I was listening to one of her interviews. I want to call her podcast OG because I think she might have published her first podcast over 10 years or so ago, which is super awesome. But I really love the topic that she talks about around that mindset piece, especially because even starting the business, sometimes you don't think about the mindset. You think about all the other things, but I love how foundational that is. And I'm sure we'll dive a little bit more into that. But she also has a really powerful and transformational story that I'm sure has led her to the impactful work that she's doing. So Alicia, excited to have you on the show. Turn the tables a little bit. Are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Let's get it started then. So, to kind of kick everything off, I know I alluded to it a little bit. Can you take us back in that time machine? Go to what I like to call your CEO story. We'll let you get started with all the awesome work you're doing.
The short version is I grew up in your conventional dysfunctional household. Welcome to the club, right? I mean, how many people have like the really happy story? Some people do. Some people say I have wonderful parents. I have a great relationship with them. Um, we had the comfortable middle class life and all was well. I did not have that. I'm like a lot of other entrepreneurs who had the challenges. I saw the violence. I was involved in all of the turbulence. It was not an easy childhood, and it led to a lot of self-confidence issues, a lot of self-esteem issues. It led to alcohol addiction and some very self-destructive patterns, we could say. When I was 18, I got the entrepreneurial bug. And I just decided that's it. I'm going to be a successful business owner. It's really cute, right? we have this naive expectation about, oh, I finally stumbled upon this great idea. And that's just, now I'm going to finally live happily ever after. Well, that's not what happened. Dabbled off and on in some network marketing and different things. When I was 21, I moved from Wisconsin out to California, and I'm going to start this e-commerce business, and it was a flop, and I ended up filing bankruptcy, and it was devastating and only further confirmed all of those wonderful thoughts that I had about myself, about how I was a failure and I was never going to make it and all that stuff. But the point here is that drive, that entrepreneurial spirit was still alive inside of me, and it just would not go away. Fast forward, I'm really bumping through life. It's pretty much a disaster and a half. Loved going out and partying and drinking, and was pretty rough around the edges. In 2005, I was out with some girlfriends. I was given a date rape drug. When I came to, I had been physically and sexually assaulted. It was one of those turning point life experiences. It was extremely painful. I had essentially post-traumatic stress disorder, was really dealing with a level of internal chaos beyond anything that I had previously experienced. And that's coming from someone who struggled with depression and feeling suicidal as a teenager and all of that stuff. So we're talking pretty next level emotional dysfunction. But that also was a blessing in disguise, because I really had two options. Either that was going to completely take me out of the game called life, or I had to find a solution. And I chose to find a solution. And that led me down a very, very deep rabbit hole of spiritual growth, healing, mindset work. And that was so transformational for me that it really was the catalyst for me to say, if I can heal, holy shit, anyone can heal. And I became very, very passionate about helping other people. So in 2006, I opened a small little EFT practice. EFT is short for emotional freedom techniques. It's pretty popular nowadays. Most people have heard of tapping. That's where I started. And it was pretty much a flop as well. So what ended up happening is I did that a little bit on the side, but I needed a 9 to 5, well, more like a 9 to 6, right? And I got a job. I was working as a manager at a cell phone store, and then I got pregnant, which was a huge shock because I was the one who said, I'm never going to have kids. Life is horrible. It's awful. It's evil. It's ugly. It's bad. It's hard out there. I'm never putting another human being through this. Well, the universe had a different plan. I got pregnant and I immediately knew I was going to be the best mom that I could possibly be. That was another one of those life-changing moments. I knew I could not work at that job anymore. I had to get business right so I could raise my son the way that I wanted to. And that's when I went back to school. I went back to school for psychology. I went back to school. I got my certification as a hypnotherapist from a nationally accredited college of hypnotherapy. I went back to school. I got my master's degree in metaphysical science, all while I'm still managing the cell phone store and pregnant and in the process of all of this stuff. So I put on my superwoman cape and I decided I'm going to get business right. And from that moment forward, it really became about being the best version of me that I possibly could be for myself, for my son, for my clients. And that was when I finally was able to start to get business right. Now, that doesn't mean that it was all rainbows and butterflies. That was where it got really real. And now I'm growing a real business and I have to take this business and myself more seriously than ever before. And I became very passionate about helping other entrepreneurs because I recognize that drive. I know that feeling. And I know that it's our own mental stuff, our own mindset stuff that is holding incredible people back. And so now my passion really is about putting out as many resources, helping as many people to get out of their own way so they can fulfill their dreams, their heart's desires, and make a positive impact on other people's lives.
Well, I appreciate you so much in sharing that, Alicia. Obviously, I'm so sorry you had to go through, those experiences, but it sounds like I always say like when you get to tell your story, and especially if you, I don't know if reclaim is the right word, but when you have that opportunity to talk about those things and you have had the success, the growth, all the things that you've been able to accomplish, not only does it of course help you out in those that are close to your son and your family and all those things, but I also feel like it gives permission and maybe even a reality to people that are going through challenges, going through things that they feel like there's no way out. When they hear somebody that's able to do that, I think it also provides a truth and an opportunity for them to kind of make that decision about creating a solution like you did.
We're all going through stuff. We will all continue to go through stuff. There is no level of success that you reach where all of a sudden now you're exempt from any other problems. uh, we have to grow through those things. And as we grow through those things, life becomes that much more rich and fulfilling. But that doesn't mean that we don't sustain some hard knocks. Even successful people fall down. And that's why I oftentimes will say, you're going to fall down. What separates the winners from the people who give up on themselves is, are you willing to pick yourself up, dust off your dirty knees, and get back in the game? That's what people are talking about when they're saying persistence and resilience. It's so easy to say, look at all this evidence. I'm a failure. It's never going to work. It's too hard. There's no support. I can't seem to figure it out. There's so much evidence. And yet it's so much this illusion that is perpetuated by our limiting beliefs and our fears and our insecurities and our self-doubt. We have to rise above that. And that takes inner work. That's Well, I'm always talking about you've got to do the inner work. The mindset is the foundation for everything you want to create in your life and in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I love, the work that you do. And I appreciate even more you talking and going through your journey because I don't think, at least I don't think, but I guess we could subconsciously, when we want to set out to do anything or create any type of success or have the success that you mentioned, like you said, I want to be a business owner, I want to have that success. Sometimes we don't realize that it's those other things, those foundational things, even that we didn't do that inner work with, we tried to maybe ignore or whatever happened. The bottom line is that sometimes that sabotages success that we want to have. It doesn't matter if it's a different type of business, different stage, different year, or whatever. If we haven't done that inner work, sometimes that can kind of sabotage us.
Absolutely. There is this saying that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. And when you start to get into the metaphysics of how this universe actually operates, and I'm not talking about woo woo stuff here, I'm talking about scientifically based understanding of how this universe operates. This is a very law based universe. People don't just all of a sudden start floating off because the law of gravity had a glitch, right? This is an incredibly law based place that we are all playing in, and you've got to learn the rules of the game. And the fact of the matter is, when you have beliefs, those beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies. They are very powerful. Your subconscious mind is playing out those beliefs in terms of your actions, in terms of your attitude, which can sometimes cause you to be on the right path. Your inner gut, your inner being is like this. If you want to call it your soul, you want to call it your inner being, right? We all have this something inside of us that is calling us towards our goals and our dreams and our values and those things that light us up and make us feel alive. And we can be on that path towards what we want. And because of these beliefs that are in our subconscious, our mind is firing off these warning bells and saying, wait a second, friend. You're not the person with the money. You don't get to go down that path. You're not the person with that level of success. That's not who you are. And it will start to actually turn us in the opposite direction. And these things are happening to us all the time. You see it not just in business, you see it with people who want to lose weight, who want to get in shape, who want the really wonderful marriage, who want to have better relationships with their children. These self-image pieces are all based upon our beliefs, and when we are not where we want to be, there is something going on inside of us that is a direct contradiction to what we proclaim we want. We got to get in there and we got to start to clean that stuff up. And we have to start to align our inner reality with the outer reality that we want to create for ourselves.
Yeah, it's so powerful to be able to do that. And I love that you bring, I'm going to use the word awareness to that because I think so many times we aren't even have the knowledge or awareness that these things are happening or that all this is in play. Like a lot of times I think we can feel like we're just kind of riding along on a car that we aren't driving, don't have any control, don't have a GPS, any of those things that it's just happening. But I love because not only, have you been able to do that in your life, it sounds like it also is the way that you can impact the clients to be able to do that inner work to see that success that they ultimately want to have. So I wanted to drill down a little bit more. Could you take us through exactly what that looks like as far as like how you work with clients and serve them and make that impact for them?
So everyone comes in with a different problem. A lot of them overlap. Some people would say, I need to be more confident, or I need to be more self disciplined, or I have this addiction to the news, or I, had this really traumatic financial loss in the past, and I can tell that it's messing with me. I can't seem to break free from the trauma, the fear, the whatever. When someone finally is willing to sort of raise their hand and say, hey, listen, I'm ashamed of this, right? I don't want to be this way. This is not what I want for myself, but I can't seem to break free from this. That is where now they're finally opening up, and we can really start to look at what is going on in the subconscious mind. What are your beliefs? And we have to, I like to say we have to look at them objectively. We challenge them. If someone believes no matter what I try, I just cannot seem to get a lucky break, I just cannot seem to push past that glass ceiling financially in my life, in my business. Well, we have to look at that and we have to say, okay, what is the belief here? So, first, I help my clients to identify what's your story? What's going on here? That story is so insidious. It is there, wreaking havoc constantly, and it is hiding in plain sight, meaning we are so used to telling ourselves that story that we don't even recognize that we're doing it. I
Mhm.
like to use the analogy of if you had a hole in your wall, something happened, right? Something smashed into the wall. Now you got a little hole in the wall. The first time you see it, you're like, oh my God, I hate that. Right? It's so glaringly obvious. But now what happens when you procrastinate and you put off fixing that hole? It's still there, but you
Get
start to
used to
desensitize
it.
to
Yeah.
it. And now that hole is still there. It's still affecting you, but you've actually gotten used to how it feels. I don't like it. Never will like it. Not going to start liking it anytime soon. But I am now sort of, it's normalized to me. And so what happens is now they're inviting over guests. Somebody's going to stay in that room. Somebody's going to see that hole. Well, now, oh man, it reactivates. And now it's this thing that is this really embarrassing problem. And now we want to do something about it. So, our beliefs, our limiting beliefs, this story that we have is somewhat desensitized. It's still bothering us. It's still affecting us. It's still creating the results that we're getting in our life and in our business, but we don't see it. I don't know why I don't like going in that room. Something about it just feels off to me, right?
Mhm.
I don't know why I don't want to ever invite anybody over to my house. Well, because you're embarrassed, you're ashamed, you don't like that. But now we're identifying what is this thing. And now we have to start to look at it more objectively and we have to start to challenge what those beliefs are because our mind can be very irrational. Oh, other people can have the success, but for some reason the universe just will not line things up for me. God doesn't think I'm worthy or whatever the story is. We are very irrational about our beliefs. When we look at them objectively, now we start to challenge them and we're giving the mind another option. We're saying, "Wait a second here. What if that's not true? What if it can be different? I mean, after all, there is no law of the universe that says everyone else can achieve this level of success, but I am somehow exempt, right? So now we are showing the mind, wait a second, maybe this isn't actually serving us like we thought that it was. Or in the case of a fear based belief, we look at it objectively so we can see the fear is not actually helping me the way that I thought it was. So if someone is afraid of putting themselves out there, they're terrified of people belittling them or judging them or deeming them unworthy or seeing their unworthiness or not good enough qualities or whatever it is, the fear is there to quote, protect us. But is it really? So we start to break down these lies that we're telling ourselves so that the subconscious mind is now actually willing to release and let it go. And then we go through a process of what I call taking away the emotional charge. Now, this is really important because all beliefs are formed with an associated powerful emotion. Things that we're not emotionally affected by are non issues for us. Okay. That's what I went through when I went through my healing process. I didn't know it at the time, but what allowed me to heal from post traumatic stress disorder was taking away the negative emotional charge on the memory, on the associations, on the experience. Doesn't mean I go out and put myself in precarious situations that are dangerous. The fear wasn't helping me. Releasing that negative emotion set me free to now use my objective mind and make more logical, rational decisions based on a state of inner well-being and empowerment. And that's what we need to do about our fear-based beliefs that are holding us back in business as well. So we go through a process of releasing that emotional charge, and that puts us back in the driver's seat of our life. Now we're no longer being driven by our limiting beliefs and our fears and all of these irrational things that are sort of just in there doing their thing. Now we get to decide, who do I want to be? And then it's about sort of reprogramming ourselves. I want to be the successful person. I want to be the amazing parent. I want to be this. What does that feel like? And now we start to reprogram. We reprogram ourselves to be the person we want to be. And that becomes the foundation for the actions we need to take and the new way of responding to challenges and the new way of embracing opportunities and being the person who does see the opportunities and says yes to them and actually begins to get some really positive momentum forward in our life and towards the achievement of those goals that really are those sincere heart's desires, that inner fire that is calling us towards greatness in our lives.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that and breaking that down. And I love how it starts with that story because I think you used the word earlier, illusions. And I think so many times we have these illusions. Sometimes we don't realize that they are illusions. They're actual facts. That's how the world is. That's, I'm not made, all those things that you said that we sometimes can repeat to ourselves. We don't realize that we even have an opportunity to go through those steps to reprogram, to have a different life, to have different results, to see things differently and to have things differently. So I think it's so powerful that you have that process and you go through that and really help people to, at the end of the day, be able to see and even probably even believe that they can have that success so that they can kind of see that through, which is so powerful. Do you feel like that is part of your secret sauce, the ability to be able to, not just understand these things, but be able to translate that so that your clients and the people you work with and the humans that are within us are able to kind of see that success? Do you feel like that's part of what sets you apart and makes you unique?
So we hear a lot of these principles. We read them in books. We hear the gurus talking about them. We intellectually get it. It's like we can recite it. Anyone listening who has heard these things, read these things, could get on a podcast. They could be talking to you and they could sound like they know their stuff, right? And yet it's not the intellectual that creates the change in us. So when I'm working with someone, I can identify based on a number of different factors, but oftentimes you can feel it. You can feel when somebody starts to get into their limiting belief. There's a drop in their energy. They go into disempowerment. And I am there to be that objective person to say, "Whoop, there it is. There it is. Wait a second." And now I will hold. Sometimes it might come across as I'm being a little tough with some of my clients. I have my Inner Game Academy and I have a group of incredible business owners in there and they bring their challenges. And when they are telling their story of woe, whatever their challenge is, right? I will not let it go. When we identify a limiting belief, I'm not letting you off the hook. Your mind is going to try so hard because it's our part of our identity. It's like, no, you don't understand, Alicia. I need you to understand me. I'm different. No, this really is the way my family is or the way that person is or whatever. I'm going to hold you to a higher standard. You can break free from that. And once we get there, I had one of my inner circle calls yesterday with my Inner Game Academy members. One of my beautiful clients who I absolutely love and adore was in there, and she was telling her story of woe about how her family doesn't, she's embodying this new image of herself, but her family just doesn't get it. They're never going to get it. And I would not let her off the hook. I held her to that standard and we released that. And last night, before I was falling asleep, I get a text from her and it says, OMG, blah, 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 blah. You would not believe what just happened. My sister just, this is where the magic happens when we finally break free from those ridiculous ideas that we have. Magic and miracles seem to happen. It's not magic and miracles. It's the laws of the universe. It's the way that things happen for real in life. But we've got to we've got to be able to grab a hold of that stuff and really just pull it out at its roots, because otherwise we're just going to keep reliving the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you. Obviously, your client appreciates you, and I know everyone that you work with does too. To be able to kind of hold the feet to the fire, because I think that that's so important. Where you have these, and I love that you talked about that feeling piece, because I think feelings can be so strong for positive or sometimes not so positive, depending on where they're pointing and kind of what's happening within that. And I think you they come, and I imagine they want to work with you because they want to redirect those things that are happening in their life, and they may not be consciously or even unconsciously aware or want to be aware of what's happening. But I appreciate the accountability, for lack of a better term, because people want to see that success, but sometimes they need that person that's able to challenge them, to challenge their assumption, challenge the story, all those things. So I love that you've been able to kind of do that.
There are so many valuable tools that are readily available for free all over the internet. Obviously, I'm by trade, I'm a certified hypnotherapist. I'm trained in EFT. I'm trained in various different energy releasing processes. I'm trained in all sorts of stuff. I can give anyone the tools. They could take those tools and they could transform their life. The problem is not that the tools or the information is not there. The problem is that sometimes our beliefs are so deep rooted in us that it's that analogy that I used before. The blind spot. It's hiding in plain sight, and we can easily, because our mind knows exactly our hot buttons. It knows how to redirect us. It's like, wait a second, no, this fear is here to protect me, and so you get too close to actually releasing that fear, we're going to distract you with this thing that we know works every single time.
Mhm.
Every time. The mind is so good. But when we really want to break free from that stuff, we have to find a way around it. And essentially, that's what I'm doing. And that's what any good coach or any good mentor is doing, is they're saying, wait a second. See, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to skate around that. You don't want to face that head on. It's too painful emotionally. But it's like ripping off a band-aid. It only hurts for a moment. You don't want to live your whole life with a band-aid on.
Right.
Let's take the band-aid off so you can, you can breathe again. You can get to that next level. And so that's where there's that little bit of a distinction between when we're going it alone, which we do need to in a lot of respects, right? I'm not a savior. You're not a savior. No coach, no guru, no mentor is a savior, because the real transformation is happening inside of each of us individually. But sometimes we need that mentor, we need that coach, we need that person to say, okay, you're tripping here, right? Let me show you how to not trip on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was funny enough, I was going to ask you for what I call a CEO hack, which kind of like that app book or habit that makes people more effective and efficient. But it sounds like maybe I think there's a the proverb that says you can go so much farther together. And I think so many times is we're trying to go through things, solo by ourselves, put on our capes and do all those things. Often feel like leaning on other people, or especially people that have that expertise and knowledge, is really the way to go farther. And I think we have to kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't even call it an ego. I feel like it's like you said, it's sometimes safety. We feel safety in being where we are, that we don't want to even look at that band-aid, let alone rip it off. So do you feel like being and having that environment, or leaning on people like that, coaches and mentors, do you feel like that's part of like what can make people more effective and efficient ultimately?
Well, absolutely. So, like I said, there is a lot of the work that you have to do on your own. You can't expect to go to, say, even a hypnotherapist. Incredible methodology here, gets right into the subconscious mind, can create some really phenomenal changes. However, You go to a hypnotherapist, and even if you had one session a week, that's maybe 1 hour a week. What are you doing with all the rest of the hours of that day, much less that week? There's a lot of opportunity for you to get sideways. So now that 1 hour a week is powerful, but you also still have to use your tools and use your practices and really have some self-discipline the rest of that time if you really genuinely want to scale and up level your life. But that 1 hour is powerful. That's like, you know, it's your fuel. That's the information that's going to take you to the next level. And then now you just have to start practicing that level and normalize that level so that you are ready for the next level after that. I oftentimes will say, we have a goal that's at the top of the staircase. We're at the bottom of the staircase. We're looking up at the top of the staircase, and it can be scary. It can be overwhelming. It can fill us with doubt. It can cause some people to be like the deer in the headlights, where you just freeze, you don't do anything. We have to take it in a logical sequence. We cannot jump from the bottom of the staircase even up to the top of the staircase. Even if you're a believer in taking quantum leaps, which is absolutely possible, what you have to remember is you're still doing it in a logical sequence. You're just doing it really fast.
Mhm.
So that's what this is really about, is you want to sprint up the staircase. Awesome. But you're still going up the steps. You're not all of a sudden putting on a jetpack and
Right, I was
rocketing
gonna
up to the
say, yes.
top, right? And so a mentor is going to help you to sprint as opposed to walking, a little bit more slowly. And for some people, that's all they're comfortable with, and that's okay. But if you get the desire within you to put your foot on the accelerator, find someone who's got the energy. They can hold the energy, because that's what we absorb. We're absorbing the energy. Those people that we look to for guidance, for support, for mentoring, those people are holding a higher vibration, a higher level of knowledge, wisdom, skill. And they're showing us, not just with our vision, but subconsciously, how to do it, how to be there, how to think, how to feel, how to act. And that is what allows us to evolve and grow into those new states of being.
Nice. I absolutely love that. And I think what is the saying? Like, if you don't know who you are, figure out who you're spending the most time with. And when you have that energy, the people that are around that are succeeding, then it's just like many other things. It starts to smear off. It starts to get on you, and you start to see that. So you want to make sure that you're around those right environments. But I love you talking about that process, because I think so many times when we see success, or we see people that have had quantum leaps or any type of leap, even the steps sometimes might be a lot depending on where you're looking at and where you're coming from. We don't see that process. We don't see the steps. We don't see the work. We don't see all the behind the scenes things. And I think, like, even you talking about your story, I think that there's so much light that should be brought to that process, to the awareness of that process. Even if you're able to kind of do it faster, you're still going through that process. And I think a lot of times we don't always realize it.
Yeah. And it really hurts a lot of well-meaning individuals who are filled with potential to see what appears to be a quantum leap, which is almost like, how come they can do it and how come I can't? And it validates the limiting beliefs. And that's
Mhm.
why I think it's so awesome that there are a lot of these sort of bigger names that are coming out and saying, no, no, here's the real story.
Right.
Because now it gives the aspiring entrepreneur, or even the I've been in this for a long time but I'm not where I want to be entrepreneur, it
Mhm.
gives them the true message, which is, you can do it. You can do it. Look at, I struggled for a long time too. It dismantles the insanity of those limiting beliefs.
Absolutely. So I absolutely love that. So I want to ask you now, you might have already touched on this for what I call a CEO nugget. A little bit more word of wisdom or piece of advice. I like to say it might be something you would tell to your favorite client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
I think that falls perfectly in line with what we were just talking about. You have everything within you, everything within you. It's really just a matter of unlocking it. And that unlocking process is not impossible. It is absolutely 100% possible. The key really is, are you doing it for you? Are you committed to you? Because you've got to find enough of that inner drive to weather the storms, because there will be storms. You're going to bump up against your challenges. One of the things that I oftentimes will explain to my clients, whether it's a new client coming in and they're in like one of those oh crap moments in life where crap has hit the fan and it feels like everything is breaking down, that's a good place to be, friends. It does not feel like it, but that is what happens when we are ready to up level. Because what I want everybody to recognize is that when we set a goal for ourselves, we're essentially striving to be something that we haven't been before. It is unknown to the subconscious mind. And as we're reaching for that, we have to become different. Not entirely different. We're not talking about you, if you valued family, that you give up on those values. No, 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 no. In fact, to the contrary, you're embracing your values more than ever before by shedding the limitations. And when we are reaching for that next level, all of our old beliefs, our old self image stuff that has been keeping us where we were, it's got to go. We're going to come head to head with that stuff. We're going to trip over it. We're going to bash our face right into it. It is going to make us feel like we are being drugged through hell. And we have to let that stuff go. It does not fit who we are becoming. You cannot take it with you. You cannot. It is not a mental, emotional, or vibrational match to who you are becoming. It's got to go. And letting that stuff go, it doesn't always feel so easy. And that's where we're going to encounter more resistance, more head to head, face to face with our fears, more head to head, face to face with our self doubt. And even though it feels really scary and it can be that illusion of failure, it's not. It's really, if you understood that it's only presenting itself because it's ready to go, you've got to release it. It is not who you are anymore. It is the old version of you. It's the old mental programming. It's the old beliefs. And you cannot take that stuff with you. It is not a match to who you are aspiring to become. Now you can look at it and you can say, okay, buckle up, because it might be a little bit of a bumpy ride as we are getting from where we once were to who we are becoming. But when you get on the other side of that, it is so worth it, because you're more empowered than you were before. You're more confident than you were before. You're more self-assured than you were before. You know your worthiness more than you were before. The physical manifestations of the money and the success and all of the stuff that you're aspiring for is now in that new energy. It's in that new mindset. It's that part of that new self-image. You got to go through the fire in order to get to it. But it's not the failure that so many people think that it is. They mistake the growth process for failure. It's not.
Yeah, and it's so powerful. And I'm going to go back to that word that I used earlier, that awareness, because I think a lot of times when you're going through that process or going through what feels like failure, you might actually be growing. But if you don't have awareness, I think, of the journey of what it looks like, of that it is going to be messy. You're going to stub your toe. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to do all the things potentially, and you might even do them more than once. But a lot of times that is what can lead you to the success that you want to have. But I think if you don't know that that's part of the journey, sometimes you might stop before you actually get to the other side of that fire or see the other side. And then, again, you start to I guess, live out the truths that you have been telling yourself. So I think it's so powerful to, again, to have awareness to be able to kind of take those steps, for that to happen.
Absolutely.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And our goal is to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Alicia, what does being a CEO mean to you?
It is ultimately, you are the creator. You are the creator of your business. We don't get into business because we like the 9 to 5. Let's be real. Okay. There is scientific evidence that we are wired differently. And a lot of business owners are just employees of their business. They're in a better position than they were being somebody else's employee in many cases because it didn't feel good to be micromanaged or whatever the case may be. There's a little bit of an illusion of being more empowered, but really if you're in that sort of daily grind, and I've spent a lot of my business years in that, right? You are the everything, and you're really just a glorified employee of yourself. When you step up into CEO status, you now are in a very, very different mindset, and a very, very different energy, and a very, very different position. You are no longer the doer of all things. You're no longer the employee. You are still technically an employee of yourself and of your business, but you're operating at a different level. You literally are the chief executive officer of your life. And so stepping up into that mindset is really the aspiration of the majority, not all, but the majority of entrepreneurs. They didn't want to just be employed by their own business. They wanted to be at that level of CEO. They wanted to be the one to say, this is how we do it. This is where I want to be actively engaged. This is where I want to put my energy and my focus. And I'm going to be delegating off those other things to incredible people who support that vision. So it's the embodiment of that mindset. We are essentially creators, all of us, everyone, even those working the 9 to 5. We are creating our life with our beliefs, with our goals and our objectives, with our attitude and our behavior, with the choices and decisions that we're making. But when you step up into the CEO role, you really want to own that, because that is ultimately where you now are claiming, this is how I'm creating my life. No longer by default. Doesn't mean that there aren't going to be bumps and bruises, but you're really stepping up into a new level of yourself. You become a leader. You become the one who is holding that vision and that energy, and other people can rally around that and feel that sense of meaning and purpose in their own lives by helping the greater vision of what you have sort of seen and birthed and created as the business owner.
Nice. I absolutely love that definition. I love obviously that creator's piece as well too, because I think so many times we forget that we have I like to say we have the canvas in front of us, we have the paintbrush or the pen or the pencil, whatever it is. We sometimes don't realize or remember, or aware, I guess, even that we can start to write that narrative. We can start to paint that canvas. Can start to do it in the way that we hope to do it, and that we don't have to have it one way or the other. We get to have either or both even. So I think once you have that awareness, and then you understand the creativeness that you have within you and in front of you when you're in life and your business and everything all around, then that's when you get to openly make that impact on a even deeper and bigger level. So Alicia, truly appreciate that definition. And of course, I appreciate your time even more. So what I wanted to do now is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best people get a hold of you, listen to your podcast, find out about all the awesome things you are working on.
Well, thank you so much. I really do hope that this has been a helpful message to everyone listening, whether it is just to give yourself permission to not be perfect, you're gonna you're gonna sustain the bumps, the bruises, to give yourself permission to let go of your limitations. If anyone wants to connect with me, my website is the perfect place to go, aliciacramer.com, ALICIACRAMER.com. Got links to all my social media. Follow me on social media. Put out lots of inspirational, motivational content. You mentioned YouTube. Our YouTube channel is, we've got hypnosis audios and EFT and affirmations, and the podcast is on there. Podcast is also available on anyone's music streaming platform of choice. That's the Mind of Business Success podcast. That it is also can be located on the website, aliciacramer.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much again, Alicia. To make it even easier, we'll have the links and information again in the show notes as well too, so that everybody can follow up with you, subscribe, listen to everything, do all the things, because Alicia is awesome and she's doing phenomenal things. But I often say we forget about, and we often can forget about the human aspect of business and even the human aspect of life at that. But I appreciate you so much again in telling your story, but also in arming us with the ability to realize that we can have life in a different way if we do that inner work and play that inner game, so that we can see the success that we ultimately want to see in our outer world. So thank you so much for all the wisdom, knowledge, nuggets, everything that you dropped today. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you.